And from Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And coming out of Philly is your girl, Tech Life Steph.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, a.k.a. Brother Tech, a.k.a. Yard Work Sucks. It's getting around that time where you got to do that yard work. And like I mentioned last week, it's the time to where the pollen is going away in my area. But it also means you got to clean off pollen everywhere. So I spent the weekend power washing my house, and ain't nothing like spraying pollen all over the place, trying to get it off. I got to get off the front of my house. I got to get it off my porch, off my front door, and then just yard work in general. It's just like, this sucks. But I could pay somebody to do it, but it's just like, well, I can just do it myself. But then I'm like, oh, this is why. I forgot why.
Because it sucks.
Pay somebody because I got to do it myself.
Listen, I got a patch of grass that's 5 by 5, literally, that I pay somebody to come out and cut. I ain't doing it. I did it when I first bought this place. I had, do I even still have my lawnmower downstairs? Maybe I have an electric lawnmower, and I would drag that thing out of the basement and run the industrial extension cord out the door and all. And I had an edger. I would edge. Forget that.
I get
even
it.
For that little bit, I can't do it.
I get it, because this is the first year that I have decided to go with a lawn service. And I used to say I don't mind cutting the grass, except for when I mind cutting it and it still needs to be done. So I went ahead and got a service that just comes out and do it. And they don't necessarily come on the same day. They just come when the grass needs to be cut.
Yeah, that's how my guy is.
Mm-hmm. So I'm enjoying that. I think
money well spent.
Yeah, he'll be here this time or sometime this week to get it, and that'll be the third service that I've had, and it's worth it because I probably would have had to cut my grass, 3 times if I wasn't paying somebody else to do it. Anyway, I don't know the folks is here to listen to us talk about cutting lines. Here to talk about some tech, but before we get to the tech, I want to remind everybody that we are on Patreon. And if you'd like to support the Tech Jawn, you can head over to patreon.com/thetechjawn, where we've got multiple tiers over there that you can sign up to, any one of which get you access to our live stream and after party. And a couple of them actually get you access to a ad-free RSS feed. So if you want to support the Tech Jawn, head over to patreon.com/thetechjawn, the Tech JAWN. So let's go ahead and jump into these tech stories. And I got a question for y'all. Are either of you familiar with the term juice jacking?
As of recently, when all these stories came out.
So I noticed, now I've known what it's been for a while. I've actually, for years, I've taken precautions to make sure that things didn't happen. And that's just because of a clearance that I had. You had to do certain things a little bit different. But for whatever reason, last month, juice jacking was just everywhere in the news. It was on CNN. Mm-hmm. It was in the Washington Post. It was on Forbes. It was kind of everywhere. And it turns out that we may not be as susceptible to it as what a lot of people think we are. So for those who don't know what juice jacking is, this is when you go to a public place like an airport, on an airplane, maybe a restaurant, to where they've got USB plugs where you can plug your USB charger or your USB cable in and charge your phone up. And the scare has been that, well, if you do this, malicious actors could take over your phone. They could, download your contacts. They can get into your financial data, all this kind of stuff. And like even the FBI was putting out stuff last month where they were, pretty much scaring the internet and, Americans in particular, that you need to be very wary of this. But it turns out that there's no known hacks where anyone has actually done this. So did the FBI and all these news outlets, did they spin us all up over juice jacking when it isn't necessarily as big of an issue as what they were necessarily making it out to be?
I think the FBI and whomever, FCC, was just doing a job, but in our news hungry tech 24, SEO, got to stay in the front page,
clicks.
Yeah, right. RSS feed, if it bleeds, it leads. So they took that as, we need to let everybody know, which they could very well use a public place, these, what do they call them? These people who could do this. They're called bad actors. That's what they call them in this story. Could very well hack a public USB port and use that to steal your data. But this story, the point of this story, which most people need to pay attention to, is you ain't all that important for them to do that.
Right,
you have to be a, some
there has to be
spy,
a reason,
right, for lack of a better term, or some journalist, and you reporting in a country that frowns on public knowledge and public information, enemy of the state type, actor, for somebody to really target you to get you to plug your device in for them to then in fact steal your data. And I think that's the whole point. While it can be done, we ain't that important.
Well, my whole thing is it just because it did come out of nowhere. It was hella random and everybody jumped on the bandwagon like news outlets tend to do. But was it just a function of people that weren't probably as tech savvy as they could be hopping on a trend, or are we being diverted? Are we, paying no attention to the man behind the curtain and they getting us all hyped up over this to mask something else or to prepare us for something else? So you get all, overly excited about the fact that we have to be protected against juice jacking. So now we enact laws and different, we're giving up more and more of our freedoms every time one of these scares happen. So was it just a ploy to get us to give up more of our freedoms that we don't even know how that's going to look yet? Or is it just a bunch of people, that don't really understand tech as thoroughly as they probably need to, that got all hyped for no reason?
So it seems like it came out of nowhere because it's not just FBI as in Washington FBI. This is FBI Denver put out a tweet that said avoid using free charging stations in airports, but they never in the tweet say as a result of somebody getting hacked or as a result of somebody suspecting that their data was hacked using whatever the case may be, we're putting out this notice. FBI Denver just out of nowhere in April was like, hey, juice jacking is a thing, and then NPR ran with it, and then all the other tech sites ran with it. So it seems like everybody.
I mean, you saw it on the news and stuff. Be wary when you're plugging your stuff in. And I think that a couple things happen. So the article that we're referencing a lot here is this ARS Technica article, and they actually say, and I quote this, the Halley's Comet of cybersecurity scare. So this is like you're making a big deal about something that's been happening for a long time. And one of the things that it points out is that unless you are a state actor with that level of capability, the only time that anyone plugs something in, your phone notifies you hey, would you like to share data? So you would hope that most people would say with common sense, well, no, I'm not going to share data with this airport terminal or this plug in this restaurant.
Well, specifically, it says trust this computer. That's really what it says. And then you have to trust this computer. Say, I want data to be exchanged between my device and this computer or whatever you're plugging into. But the story says there are no documented cases of juice jacking ever taking place in the wild. So it's still kind of strange as to where this came from. Did somebody just bored that day at FBI Denver?
It's almost like there's something happened that they ain't ready to tell the public about. So they just go say, you know what, just be safe. And in the way that they say just be safe, they get every news outlet that is following the FBI in Denver to put this stuff out. And it's like,
that's what I'm saying. It's a cover. I feel like it's a cover. I feel like it's a cover for something. And we're not going to be privy to it until, something catastrophic happens. And like I said, a law gets passed that now our data's up for grabs in another, egregious civil rights violating way. And then we'll be all up in arms, and people's like, remember when that juice jacking thing came out back in the day? That's why so yeah.
So I want to be clear.
For the okie doke.
The Tech Jawn is not telling anyone to not be concerned about this at all. And let me, like, as I said at the beginning, I have actually protected myself from this for years because a particular military base said I had no choice but to if I wanted to use my phone. So I have for a long time used power only USB to charge my phones. And we're going all the way back to when, I am Android, but I've been using USB-C for, I don't know, it's probably been 3, 4, 5 phones. So we're talking about, 7, 8 years that I've actually been using USB-C. I was actually making sure I was using power only USB cables when I was back on micro USB. So it's been a minute that I've been doing this. So to channel my best Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech, to channel how he would say this, you're not gonna catch me slipping. I use, in fact, I can't remember a time when I've actually used my cord from my phone to plug it into a computer to do anything with it. I'm sure that I've done it at some point. I probably wanted to play with, what is it? I can't even think of the name of it, but Samsung has a thing where you plug your phone into a monitor with a keyboard and it kind of Samsung Dex. Mm-hmm. It's been probably when I first got the phone last year, the last time I've done that. So for me, all of my cables that go with my power bricks, they're just power only. You can't use them to do any data with them. And it's like those cables cost really no more than other cables do. So whenever I buy them, I just make sure that's what I get because it's so rare that I actually.
And you ain't even got to go that far. Just plug your phone into the wall.
Yeah.
Use the little.
Well, there are times
into the outlet.
There are times when you may see an available USB port, but don't see an actual plug. That happens fairly regularly,
especially at airports.
Airports. So I understand why people do it, but just get a I'm not trying to scare anybody into this like this art like all these articles were. But if you are at all concerned about it, just get a power only cord, or you can even get a power only adapter, and they make them both for USB-C, micro USB, and what is it called for lightning cable. So you can just a little adapter you put on the end, and it only allows the individual wires that allow power transfer to get into your phone. But I thought this was an interesting story because I do remember last month. It's like, man, it's like, did something happen? Because everybody's talking about this. And it turns out, no, nothing happened. At least nothing that they're willing to tell us about. There's never been a hack that we know of that this has been the way that someone has been infiltrated.
Hashtag stay woke.
Hey, don't be using woke.
So this next one here, I really have to say this one gets in my craw. You want more speed, pay more money. What am I talking about? Mercedes with their EVs are potentially going to charge you a subscription, not just charge you once, but a subscription if you want your car to go faster. And or I should say accelerate faster. I think with Tesla, they have something, what is it called? Ludicrous mode or something like that, to where when you hit the accelerator, that jump really moves out. I guess maybe Mercedes is doing something like that, but they're going to charge you a subscription for it. And I don't know about y'all. This just bothers me because I remember some stories from last year where it wasn't just things like acceleration. If you want heated seats, then you pay a monthly fee for your heated seats. If you want remote start, then you pay a monthly fee for it. And it's like, did I buy a car or am I subscribing to the car is the question that comes up to me. So I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on new cars not coming with features that you pay for up front, but features that you pay for repeatedly monthly to have access to them, where things are basically turned on or turned off with software because your car connects up to some kind of cloud.
Well, we talked about this if I'm remembering correctly, and about the idea that it was real janky because they were also including some safety features in some of those subscription fees as well. And one of the articles you posted, Rob, there was something about emergency braking being a part of the subscription program as well, which just sucks. And it's just, trying to capitalize, and that's not the word I'm looking for though. I think about old boy that was selling that I think it was an EpiPen or a diabetes pen
Skrelly.
Yes,
Skrelly.
and just being opportunistic. That's the word I'm looking for. Just being opportunistic and getting more money because you can. I think, unfortunately, all of our cars are probably going to go this way. It's not just going to be EVs, after a little while. I think, with electronically controlled transmissions and stuff like that, like all of our cars are going to do this. And we're going to be fussing like we were when Microsoft first sent Office to a subscription, but then we sucked it up and started paying. So at some point, I think we probably will start paying for some things. But it just sucks that they would nickel and dime us in this way.
If they can, they will. That's the
American way
of capitalism, right? And but the problem, not the problem, the concern is that you're already paying top dollar for Mercedes, right? You're already then paying a premium on top of that for an electric Mercedes-Benz. And when you're paying all that, you assume or you want to believe that you are getting everything that Mercedes has to offer, paying that premium for the name, and then paying that premium for that on top of new technology, which is electric vehicles. That's where everything is going. So then to them to bust you upside the head with, oh, you want to unlock all of these features, you got to pay a top money on top of that. It's just a slap in the face. And personally, and the reason why I put this story in here is because I think, and this is Terrance Gaines putting on my conspiracy theory hat, which is why I think GM decided that they wasn't going to put CarPlay or Android Auto into their future electric vehicles, is because they want to turn around and be like, oh, so you want a subscription to be able to unlock your infotainment system, to be able to get the address to the latest or whatever the case may be. Similar to how they did with OnStar. When they came out with OnStar, that's a subscription service to where you can unlock your doors, you can remote start, you can get concierge service, you can get safety and emergency services. When you plug in your CarPlay and your Android Auto, your phone does all that. Apple came out with crash detection. They came out with all these other things. And GM was like, wait a minute. We want to be able to charge or subscribe or whatever they want to call it for future features. And we can't do that when somebody else has has control of that portion. So that kind of leads into this story to where Mercedes-Benz is like, oh, you want to go faster? You want to unlock this feature? It's like they're gamifying, these electric vehicles and this future technology, which is like Stephanie, you mentioned, everything is going the way of subscription. It's like you can't buy nothing no more without paying for a subscription. I got toothbrushes now. I got to subscribe to them. So this is where everything is going.
Right.
And he's not being facetious, America.
No, absolutely not. The bad part in this particular instance was you were only getting acceleration,
a second at the most.
Yeah, a second at the most. You're going a second faster for like $90 a month.
$90 a month.
It was crazy.
So you said this, Stephanie. You said this about
actually it was $60 a month. I take that back, but that's still too much money.
Mm-hmm.
When I remember when Microsoft went to, or I should say Office went to the subscription, I think the first thing that I got was like Adobe, like Creative Cloud. That was one of the first things where I was buying Photoshop. And you know what? Maybe it makes sense to just do a subscription because I'm really not using all of this Creative Cloud. I use 2 of these apps. And ultimately every 4-5 years is like $700 to go buy this, or I could just give them $30-$40 a month. Now I know over the course of time, I end up paying more, but it's constantly updated. So in my mind, it kind of made sense for that because it was something that I was using fairly regularly. And I knew that I was going to upgrade it. I think about my dad, who's a photographer. He said, I'm never going to pay for a subscription. It took him years to actually get to where he wouldn't just go buy Photoshop and everything he needed for his photography work, because it's like, no, I would just rather have it. And instead of paying a subscription every month. And then I was like, Dad, well, wait a minute. You literally, every time there's an update, you buy the new version every single time. So it's like, if you're going, every time it comes out, if you're going to buy the new version, you might as well do the subscription, because it's going to cost you literally half as much than every other year buying a new version of Photoshop. But I look at that as software, and I look at that as different. I'm subscribing to be able to use this software. When I think about buying a car, though, a car to me is a piece of hardware. So what am I paying you a subscription for? If the car can go faster, let me,
include that in the sticker price.
Include that in the sticker price. Say that if you want to have this 1 second faster acceleration, it's going to cost you an additional $19.99. But that's a charge that I pay today, and then it's just enabled on that car forever, as compared to giving you $90 a month. Because clearly, after a little over a year, or not a year, a little over 2 years, you have more than paid for this thing on this car that you probably still have. So to me, that is something different. Like, wait a minute. So the seats are heated, and here's the thing. And I think we talked about this before. If we talk about the story from last year with like heated seats as a subscription, so the car has the ability to heat my booty up. So am I paying less for the car because I don't think that the materials cost you less?
Take the subscription. You should be able to pay less.
Yeah, it's like, I want to pay less if I'm not going to turn these things on, not pay more, because in my mind, I can't see GM or Mercedes or any other car company saying, you know what, we're going to put at our own cost $800 worth of seat warmers. I'm just making that number, $800 worth of seat warmers in the car. But you know what? We're not going to charge anyone for it unless they actually buy a subscription. That's not how they roll. They're going to make sure that whatever I pay for the sticker on that car, that the base price that I'm paying is going to cover them making their money on that car. Anything they make off that subscription, to me, seems like it would be extra. And that just doesn't sit right with me. I don't feel like I should be paying a subscription to have features on a car that I actually purchased the whole car up front. It's just my thoughts, but that's kind of how I think about it.
Especially if the technology and the capability is already there and I got to unlock it. It's one thing for me to say, okay, well, I want to upgrade to the better engine that gives a second faster in acceleration. Like you said, I'll pay that up front. But to have it in my car and then for them to tell me, oh, in order to unlock it, you got to pay some more. It's like, come on, man. But again, that's what technology is doing.
Yep. And people are going to pay it.
We're going to grumble, and we're going to do it.
Yep. Yeah. I ain't doing it, but somebody going to do it. I'm just like, I'll be the slow poke on the highway with a cold booty and nothing
slower
else. I don't need none of that stuff. That's right. I don't need none of that stuff.
Nothing could be driving down having to roll or with you can't see. You literally got to roll your windows up like Dave Chappelle in the limo.
As long as they don't start charging a subscription for the heat, then I'm good. Shoot. That's what the heat is for.
So, yo, this is a continuing saga. This next story we want to talk about. It is Apple and Epic Games. And for those who don't know, there is a lawsuit that has been going on. And it's really all stems from Apple's absolute lock into using the App Store. So when you think about Epic Games in particular, it was Fortnite. Epic Games didn't want to pay 30% to Apple in order for people to buy in-game updates and all this kind of stuff, and they wanted to circumvent that. So they've gone to court over this. And it looks like Apple is looking like Apple is kind of coming out on the good side of this this lawsuit, to where they may actually get what they want.
Epic got what they want too.
Right. So
Apple just hasn't done it yet.
The devil is in the details, right? So what Epic did was, because they didn't want to pay the the 30% subscription, is they claimed that Apple had a monopoly on the App Store. That's what their end was. Well, Apple has this monopoly. Well, just what they really wanted was, we don't want to pay the 30%, right? So the war back and forth, Epic versus Apple, yada, 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 side loading apps, monopoly, the whole thing. Judge comes through and finally says, you know what, Apple? We got you. Y'all are not a monopoly on the App Store. You have the App Store and you have all these different apps and you have all this other competition. So therefore there's no monopoly on the App Store. But
whatsoever.
You can't tell people, you can't restrict the app's ability to use just one platform, right? You have to give them an option to not just use your platform for charging people. And then Epic was like,
that's all they wanted in the first place.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. That's all they wanted in the first place. They got what they wanted. So it's just like all of this, all it did was make lawyers rich.
Right.
Pretty much.
So Apple claimed victory, Epic claimed victory, but in the end, it was just they got what they wanted anyway. Right.
We wasted the court's time, basically, because y'all really could have just worked this out amongst yourselves a year and a half ago or whenever that was, and it just was ridiculous that it even came to this.
When you think about it, it really is going to take big companies like Epic, like Microsoft, like Adobe, that they can actually do their own payment processing through their websites. For a lot of smaller companies, it's like, I'll gladly let you, we're going to just charge our customers more, but we'll gladly let you take that 30%. So we just don't have to worry about it. We've actually seen companies come out and say that. It's like, I don't think anyone has said we gladly give up that 30% to Apple, but we understand that Apple's got to make something, and it is what it is. So I think both of you guys are right. This is one where Apple technically won 9 of the 10 things, in this lawsuit, but Epic won as well, because at the end of the day, we don't want you to block us from allowing people to go pay in our website. And you can just keep everything that, people do through, through the App Store. Kind of makes sense.
And I think Apple just wanted the on the record optics of not being declared a monopoly. I think they wanted that on the record that, this judge has ruled that our app store is not a monopoly. I think that helps them tremendously, actually. So I guess it was worth it to spend the money on the attorneys to get that statement, on the record.
So here's a question for you, and I didn't even stick this in the notes. I'm just going to kind of go left with this. So in the UK, it's looking like Apple may have to allow third-party app stores on the iPhone, or I should say on iOS devices. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Will that change? Will they just do that for iPhones there, or will I can't see Apple saying we're going to allow anybody else to make money when we ain't making it. I
just don't even see how you can make a company do that on their own phone. Like, it's our phone. Like, we could do whatever. It's our phone. Like,
especially if there's other competitors like Android.
Right. You can go to Android and put whatever app store you want on there. On this particular phone, all you got is the App Store, and that's it. And yeah, that's crazy. But I think.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I see Apple being like, well, don't buy the phones then. You know what I mean? Like, just shutting it down altogether. I mean, I don't know that they can afford that necessarily, but I don't see them doing it. I don't see them doing it.
If they're forced to, there's sort of kind of precedent to this. And what I mean by that is Apple has to include a power brick in their phones in other countries, because other countries, I don't know if it's the EU specifically, but other countries is like, look, you got to include this. So Apple's like, all right, fine. We'll include a charger as a separate box or something like that. But with Americans and over here, this is what we're going to do over here. So Rob, to kind of directly answer your question, if it comes down to it, Apple may be petty and figure out some way that wherever this ruling came from for their own, constituents or whatever, Apple could be like, all right, well, we'll give you a thumb drive or something. I don't know, some way to be able to do it just for y'all to make y'all
make it so much, put so much friction in it that people won't do it anyway. Yeah, like that, to your point, like a thumb drive, that would actually be pretty genius. To be like, oh, you want a different app store? Yeah, well then you have to write into us. You have to send us a letter, not even an email. You got to send us a whole letter and request your thumb drive with
because Apple did that.
Wait 6 to 8 weeks and get your thumb drive back. Yeah, I can.
And they did exactly that with the right to repair. iFixit and these companies was like, you can't open iPhones anymore and change the battery. You can't fix the screen. You can't do all that. And so we want you to be able to we want to force companies like Apple to make it easier for people to repair their phones. And Apple was like, all right, bet. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to send you this big old suitcase, cumbersome contraption, give you this 100 page instruction booklet to enable you to fix your screen.
And weren't the tools like $100 an hour to rent because you needed the specialized tools, Apple tools and whatnot?
You had to do all that, and then I'm pretty sure people was like, you know what? Never mind, and we never heard about it again.
Literally,
Apple being
they made Apple being so cumbersome. It's like you needed a suitcase worth of kit to change your screen.
To change out a screen. Listen, I ain't mad at them. This is my damn phone. I'm gonna do what I want with my phone.
So yeah, if we keep talking about big companies and particularly gaming companies, I stuck this other one under here. So it is Microsoft, and we've talked about this before. Microsoft is trying their best to buy Activision Blizzard. Humongous. I can't even remember how big it is, but it is. Is it like $69 billion deal? It might even be bigger than that. It's a huge deal that they want. But Microsoft has been jumping through every hoop, has been crossing every T, dotting every I to make it look like here in America and definitely over in the UK that they're not a monopoly if this goes through. And what is interesting is that I'm reading this article, and this is right off of the gov.uk government website, where the CMA is the Competition and Markets Authority, and I'm just going to read this. It has prevented Microsoft's proposed purchase of Activision over concerns of the deal would alter the future of fast-growing cloud gaming markets, leading to reduced innovation and less choice for UK gamers over the years to come. So they're being blocked not because they think it's a monopoly. They think that all the cloud gaming that Microsoft is getting into, that's the problem. So that's why they're being blocked. And I just want to ask you guys, is this a situation where Microsoft cannot win for losing? Because it seems like there's just so many different forces that do not want this company to buy Activision Blizzard. Sony is one of the, from our standpoint here in the US, is one of the biggest reasons that Microsoft, I think, is seeing a lot of trouble. But over in the UK, it's like, nope, cloud gaming. That's the reason we're not going to let you go through with this.
Well, I think it's kind of, on Sony's part, I think it's kind of hypocritical. The fact that they are so concerned about Microsoft getting Activision / Blizzard, which holds titles like World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, and then Overwatch, to name like the three big ones, right? But Sony themselves have titles that are specific to PlayStation: God of War, Gran Turismo, a couple other ones, to where, I, as a fan of Gran Turismo, fan of God of War, but with an Xbox, I just had to take it as a loss to where I just can't play those games. But then flip it, Sony is so against Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard because of these particular games, which are equally as popular, if not more so, specifically Call of Duty. I don't know how the cloud version of Microsoft getting into this, but like you said, it just seems like Microsoft, this deal is just not going through for whatever Microsoft hands over, as far as a concession, as far as a compromise, as far as a we promise. I don't think this is just going through just because.
So I'm gonna read this real quick. Microsoft has a strong position in cloud gaming services, and the evidence available to the CMA showed that Microsoft would find it commercially beneficial to make Activision's games exclusive to its own cloud gaming service. Mm-hmm. So now I'm not a gamer, but I know how to read. And isn't that already what Activision does? Or I may, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't Activision's games exclusive to Activision currently? Or is it a case where you can play Activision games across multiple platforms?
Right, the second one. So you can play those games cross platform, specifically Xbox and PlayStation. There's other consoles. So basically, nobody cares about those, right?
Xbox and PlayStation. But with this new agreement, you would only be able to play Activision games on Xbox, basically.
No, Microsoft is promising. Yeah. Microsoft is Scout's honor. Hey, we're not going to do anything. We're going to 10 years or whatever this number is.
Well,
hold on, because here's what they've done. They've actually gone out to Nintendo and have signed like, what is it, 10-year deals? We're going to make this game cross-platform with you for 10 years.
Like 10 years is not a long time.
Well, here's
in the grand scheme of things.
And Microsoft is going to be counting those days on the calendar.
Counting them down, and they're either going to revoke that license and or double the licensing fee. I get it. I get why people would
scared.
Back in the fall, the head of Microsoft Gaming, he went on a media tour, and he was flat out saying, it's like, if the lawyers would let us write a contract that we'll say we're not going to make this game exclusive to us ever, we would do that. But there's no lawyer that's going to ever let us do that. So we're going to, what is close to forever? Well, 10 years. You can use this game for 10 years on your platform without worrying about it going away. And then we will renegotiate the deal like 5 years before the deal actually ends.
That's just counterintuitive to how capitalism works.
Exactly. But it's like everybody else is like every opportunity for you to make money off of this, that's what we're going to stick with you. Well, they could make more money by doing this. So this is why it shouldn't happen. And as I said, it seems like it's working, because over in the UK, it really did look like y'all are good on the on the monopoly standpoint. What you're not good is on all this cloud gaming that you really never even talked about, or that we never even talked about. So it is interesting to me. I don't know how to call this. I don't know if it's going to go through, because it's like what's going to go through here in the States, but not in the UK. It's like gaming is huge everywhere. So I'm certain that Microsoft would try to do something if America allows it, but it's still a big, it's a big knock for them if they can't get this to go through in the UK or in the EU or in Australia or in Japan. It's like it becomes problematic for them if they can't make this be a deal where we own them everywhere, as compared to just owning them in little fiefdoms that, regulators are, what's the word? The regulations are advantageous to us. Let's just say it like that.
So I ain't buying it. Microsoft throwing a rock and hiding their hand right now.
Look, I don't put nothing past. I would do it if I was Microsoft. I'd be like, is year 9 a day 354? Yeah, we about to do this little celebration and flip this switch.
Right.
I can't really be mad at Sony for going up, because it's like, we don't want Microsoft to do to us what we're already doing to Microsoft.
Right. They gotta protest, but yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I see the issue, but I think Microsoft's gonna get this in the end, because that's the capitalism at its finest right here.
So let's wrap up, talk about some Netflix. So for those who don't know, Netflix, which is the biggest streaming media platform as far as like watching TV shows, movies, that kind of thing, they're still number one. They actually have locked down on sharing of passwords. Now, back in the day, they would flat out tell you, we want you to share your passwords. Allow anyone, any of your friends, family to use your username and password. I don't want to say that they went out and just told people to do that, but they made it very okay to do that. Your kids move out. Well, they still log in. Well, yeah, we want them to enjoy Netflix as well. But they started to realize, well, wait a minute, we're getting to that point of critical mass to where everybody has a Netflix account. We can't keep growing by just signing new people up. So we have to sign up people who are using our services that aren't actually paying us. So this is when they have started to get rid of the password sharing. And Terrance, I believe you stuck this in here. It looks like there are relatively easy ways to work around not having to have your own username and password when it comes to Netflix and those passwords being shared out.
Right, because the way Netflix is blocking people from sharing accounts is you have to have a quote unquote home base. Basically, you have to, all of your Netflix accounts have to be registered in this home base, which is your house, which is IP. I'm assuming they use your IP address or whatever the case may be. But me as a Netflix owner, I may travel to California for a week, whatever the case may be, and I want to go to a hotel and I want to be able to sign into my Netflix account. Netflix is like, we don't want to mess that up. So basically, what you have to do is you have to enter in your account, and they have to send you this code that you have to enter into your phone or whatever the case may be to give you quote unquote temporary access to where then I can then watch my Netflix account from California or wherever the case may be. And then periodically I have to do that if it's showing that I am signed into a device or whatever that's not the quote unquote home base. So if I'm in California for 6 months, every so often I have to periodically put this code in. So basically that's the loophole. If I am then sharing an account with, say, my daughter who lives in California, but it's my account and my home base is here in Atlanta, my daughter would have to, and this is the loophole, she would just have to, they would send me the code, and then I would have to send it to her.
Be on the phone with her, give her, here go the code. Yeah.
Right. And she entered into her device, and then she gets in for periodically another however long the time is where they say, oh, you got to log in again. So that's pretty much the just wanted to share that idea that Netflix is like, yeah, we're trying to have it all. We want people to stop sharing accounts, but at the same time, we don't want to restrict people to their own homes. Right.
Netflix is tripping, it's funny. I just read an article, and I pulled something up. This is not the one I read, but I literally just read something recently that said the backlash has actually been, I think, a little bit more severe than they were expecting. Netflix lost more than 1 million users in Spain in the first 3 months of 2023 as a backlash to this password sharing crackdown. So I think they're going to see a lot of that. I mean, I'm not, I am the Netflix account holder in my family bubble right now, but I'm pretty positive the people I'm sharing with will not buy sign up for a Netflix subscription if they get kicked off of mine.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like 99.9% positive they're not going to do that. The same way I'm not going to get a Hulu subscription if I get kicked off of that one, or Disney. Like, I ain't doing it. Like, I will just live without that programming. In a similar vein to the conversation that's going on in the chat about the gaming systems. Like, will people just not play Call of Duty if Microsoft locks it down in their cloud system? I just won't watch those streaming platforms. I mean, it's just there's not enough content for me to be like that loyal to any of these streaming platforms. So I just don't think this is going to be the flex Netflix thinks it's going to be.
The only, and Rob, I'll let you go real quick. I was thinking about this. I'm super petty. I'm Petty McGee. So the only way I could see this working in my benefit is if let's just say I'm dating somebody and we split up, and then I forgot that she knew my account information, and Netflix hit me like hey, somebody logged in from a so-and-so and so-and for,
you ain't giving that code out.
I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and cancel that.
You ain't giving that. You ain't getting that code. I ain't sending you the code. Send me the code for the Netflix note.
Right.
Leave her on red.
Could you imagine dating somebody and they send you a text message like, hey, you got that code? I tried to enter the code.
I get that Netflix code.
I'm like, girl, get out of my face.
I don't have to imagine it, because I've seen social media posts about that. It's like, you didn't have to treat me that that way. It's like, we broke up. Why am I funding your watching habits? But here's a question. So Hulu's been doing this for a while. There are times when I actually live in an area where, for whatever reason, I lose my internet connectivity. It's not like once every year. It could be as often as every couple of months. There is an issue with my internet connectivity, and it's usually at night. It's usually they're doing something. It hasn't actually been an issue for like when we're recording the show. So it's usually late at night. But oftentimes, what ends up happening is that if my primary internet goes down, I have it set up to where I can just, I'm not doing anything special. I just have 5G on my phone, and I have my phone set up, and I have it literally, being broadcast on a secondary network. So what will end up happening is that without me even noticing it, my primary internet will go down. Then my Hulu will connect over to my phone. It's a different IP address, and it'll ask me, do you wish to change your home address or home IP address? And they only let you do that so many times. So I got to where, okay, wait, I'm not going to keep doing this because I don't want to have to get into where I now got to call Hulu and say, hey, it's still me. I'm still living in the same place, and explain my situation. So what I figured was that, okay, wait a minute. I do use Android. I do have Chromecast on pretty much every television. Where Hulu never asks me, if I've changed homes, if I'm connecting through my, actual on my phone, if I'm running the mobile app on my phone, it never cares about my IP address. So what I've started doing is that if for whatever reason, I need to, I'm not at home, instead of actually trying to connect the device up like a Chromecast directly to the to Hulu, or connecting up like a Fire Stick directly to Hulu, I will just use my phone to cast it because I know my phone is always going to work. And I've just wondered, would that be the same case with Netflix? If I have Netflix on my phone and I'm moving around with my phone, are they checking to see whether or not that's my home IP address? Or do they know that it is a phone address? You're traveling. We're going to just let you use this IP address without making you jump through hoops and hurdles. Well, I don't know that that's going to work. I wonder if it will, because it seems like that is the case with Hulu.
Well, according to the story, I don't know about Hulu, but according to the story, it says Netflix says it uses IP addresses, device IDs, and account activity from devices signed into your Netflix account to determine whether the device is streaming inside the household or outside of it. So it sounds like the answer to your question is, I don't think they're going to be that specific with just your IP address. They're going to use a combination of things to assume that you're in your household as opposed to being across country or being in another household that is sharing a password.
Makes sense. So y'all,
need to stop tripping.
2 weeks in a row, we're going to have a spotlight this week. Woo-hoo. So let me go ahead and pull up what I'm going to read here for our spotlight. So we're going to be talking about a gentleman named Marc Jones, and usually we shine our spotlights on scientists, engineers, inventors, and other visionaries that have created a lot of technology that we use. But we would be remiss if we didn't also mention some of the entrepreneurs running these companies to deliver all of this tech hotness to us. So this week, we're shining the Tech Jawn spotlight on Marc Jones, one of Silicon Valley's most innovative technology entrepreneurs. As chairman, president, and CEO of Ares Communications, Marc and his team have spent over a decade helping the world's largest companies fundamentally improve their business through the Internet of Things. And he's been named by Goldman Sachs as one of the nation's best entrepreneurs in 2012 and in 2013. Marc grew up in Chicago before coming out west to Stanford University, where he received both his undergraduate and law degrees. As a young lawyer, Marc was recruited by top-tier investment banks and soon by their clients. In his early 30s, he was named president and COO of Madge Networks, where he helped turn a young $40 million revenue company into a $500 million industry leader. Madge's successful IPO took place during his tenure. After Madge Networks, Marc served as the chairman and president and CEO of VisionNow, a pioneer in the enterprise network management and automation space, raising over $40 million to fuel their rapid growth. In addition to his professional work, Marc sits on the board of directors for Ingersoll Rand and Stanford Healthcare, and is on the board of trustees for Stanford University. He is widely known for his deep commitment to the nonprofit sector and serves as the chair of management leadership for Tomorrow and on the board of California Healthcare Foundation. He previously served as the board of visitors for Stanford Law School, the Stanford Athletic Board, and the board of directors for Working Partnerships USA. Marc also served as a chair of the National Cybersecurity Partnership Enterprise Task Force, and in 2004 testified before Congress on cybersecurity. He has also testified before Congress on Sarbanes-Oxley. So once again, this is a brother that he himself isn't necessarily into the tech. He is not necessarily doing the tech, but he's basically running the companies and staging the companies that are doing the tech. And we need to talk about that as well, because he's running a tech company, even though he personally may not be a technologist himself. So I thought that that was a cool one, just because he's behind some pretty big, powerful company names that I've actually heard of before.
That's what's up.
So we did not have any new patrons this week. So I just want to remind anyone who would like to support the Tech Jawn, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/the Tech Jawn. That's the Tech JAWN. Any one of our tiers, we really appreciate if you choose to support us that way, so we can bring the tech to you the way that we do. But with that being said, Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and tell the folks how they can get at you?
You can find me all around the web at Tech Life Steph, and another plug for my AMA on May the 4th. 7 p.m. Eastern, I will be debuting the new website, and I will have some giveaways as well. And again, we'll be doing an AMA, so you can ask me just about anything. But holla at me on Instagram at Tech Life Steph this Thursday.
I'm going to ask you something now. Are you going to have any May the 4th swag? May the 4th be with you swag. I'm just being facetious, but you said May 4th.
Maybe it could be. You never know. You never know. Could be. You got to tune in to see.
Speaking of Patreons, back a couple weeks ago, we had a new Patreon, Duke Winfield. Come to find out, that's my brother. So I just want to do a shout out to my brother who actually listens to the show under a pseudonym. I guess we all got pseudonyms. Right. So I just want to say shout out to my brother for listening to the show and actually supporting the show. But you can find me on all things using my assumed name, Brother Tech, on all social.
And I am at all things. I should say I am at Robb Dunewood on all the things. And we're also at the Tech Jawn on all the things. So come holla at us wherever you holla. Until we meet again in a week's time. Peace.
Peace.